Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Transitioning International Students webinar, which is part of the National Forum for the Advancement of Teaching and Learning in Higher Education seminar series. And as I said, obviously you're here on the web, so it's a webinar instead of just a face-to-face seminar. As you may or may not be aware, the National Forum is looking at supporting a number of transitions. Those transitions include from college into work back into college, second level into higher education. One of the transitions is also the transitioning of international students into the Irish higher education system. And this is, of course, what we're particularly interested in. We're joined here and we have 5 presenters today from our 5 cluster partners, the Cork Institute of Technology, CIT, Waterford Institute of Technology, the Institute of Technology Carlow, University College Cork, and ourselves here, IT Tralee. And as I say, we just wanted to acknowledge the National Forum for making today's webinar possible in terms of actually providing the funding and the support and the promotion of the seminars. And apart from just our own seminar, I would encourage everybody to go onto the National Forum website and to just check out the list of seminars and webinars which are being funded. And as I wish to acknowledge the 5 presenters who will be joining us. We've won from all of the colleges. We have international officer, we have lecturers, and we also have students, because we're very interested in how we can actually support and provide better teacher and learning experience to our international students who are coming to this country. So just like to also, as I said, this is a webinar. We would like to encourage you all to please join in. You'll see here that there's a chat box at the bottom left of your screen, and you can join in that way. I'll be moderating the day as the day goes on, so if you have any questions at all like that, please just type in your questions. At the end of the 3 presenters this morning, we'll have a sort of round table discussion, and so I'll be moderating. So please, any questions, any comments, anything at all that you'd like to feel you have a chance to interact, will you please get involved. As I just type in the chat down the bottom left and just press the return button, and I will see that, and I'll be moderating as the day goes on. So just to set a little bit of today's context, the Investing in Global Relationships, Ireland's International Education Strategy 2010 to 2015, which was launched in September 2010. And in the foreword by the then Taoiseach and Minister for Education and Skills, Mary Coughlin, the interests of students are at the heart of our concerns. We must continue to offer international students a high quality education and a unique student experience that is based on strong integration with their Irish peers. And I think that's the thing at the heart of for us. We think, obviously in Ireland, we're very proud of our higher education system, and I think we can certainly offer both a good quality education, but also, I suppose, a unique experience for people to come here. As long as they're not looking for good weather, I would hasten to add. But no, we think that we can genuinely offer something really important to our students coming here. So I think that's an important thing that we want to try and improve. Why is it important? Just quoting some of the material from the strategy here. Ireland, we're a small open European economy, and we do rely on international engagement. We've learned our lessons from being members of the European Union, but also in the wider world. We rely heavily on exports, and I suppose it's important that we actually raise our profile. And I suppose the great thing about having students coming here, and also I suppose our Irish students going abroad as well. But what you want is that the people who are coming here, you would hope when they return back to their home countries, they're well disposed towards Ireland. They have a sense of what Irish culture is about. They will have a good regard for the economy, for the people. They'll have a good understanding, and that has to sort of impact on Ireland's profile in the longer term. That we will have in many ways thousands and thousands of ambassadors. The latest figures there, it's over 30,000 students are coming here. And that's a very significant number, and you roll that on year, after 10, 15 years, you have many, many thousands of people who hopefully will be well disposed and have had a good experience of Ireland and made some good connections here. And also in terms of revenue, the estimates are around €1 billion in terms of revenue, both in terms of fees and spending money, and and I think we just had our own international day here. So I mean, it's not just about money. We had our own international day here in IT Tralee, and it's absolutely great to see the colour that the foreign students actually bring to the college. It was a very exciting and lively and vibrant day, and I know all of the colleges organise international days, and I think it's very good for our own students to be exposed to have a sense of ourselves that that students don't see beyond the borders here of just this country alone. So I think all in all, I think it's a very, very positive thing for the country, for each education, for each college, and for the individual students as well, that they can have make a big contribution. So I feel a little bit like we're on sort of Eurovision, because we'll be switching from different colleges to different colleges. Our first session this morning, we have a session A and session B. We'll be taking a break for about 20 minutes, approximately at 11 o'clock. And so our three presenters this morning come from CIT in Cork. We'll be then switching to WIT in Waterford, and then back here to IT Tralee. We'll be taking a short 20-minute break, as I say, and then we will be going over to Carlow and UCC. And at the end of each of the three presenters and the two, as I said, we will be having a sort of roundtable discussion. So please feel free to join in, to put your observations, questions, any thoughts, anything at all that you'd like to make a comment. So we're going to be switching over now to Cork now in a moment, where we'll be joined by Faber, who is 21. He is an engineering student from CIT, and he's from Brazil. He's a student ambassador and has been studying in Cork since last January. And having met him last week, I'd have to say he, not just an ambassador for CIT, he's an ambassador for his country, and I think he has some very, very interesting things to say. So I'm now going to hand over to Faber in Cork, if we're there.
Hi Faber, it's Tony here. Can you turn on your talk button, please?
Hi everybody, we're just having one or two issues just in switching over here, so hopefully we get ourselves sorted. We're just waiting for Faber to come in from Cork. I can see him on the small screen. Faber, if you can actually hear me, if you can just wave your hands, let us know that you can hear us. Apologies everybody, we'll get ourselves sorted. So probably just bear with us a moment. My apologies for this.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. Good morning, guys. I'm a student from CIT, and I'll tell you about the student's perspectives. Who am I? My name is Faber. I'm 21, as Sam said, and I'm from Brazil. This is Brazil. This is the city. Well, I was born in a small city called Alto Taquari. I moved to Mineiros during my high school and after Brasilia, and after all of this, I'm here in Cork since January. And well, how did I end here? It's a program called Science of Borders. It's a governmental program in Brazil between some institutes abroad and my country. I studied at Universidade de Brasília. It's called UNB, and I studied civil engineering there. And here in Cork, after a long process, I started studying in September here in CIT. First, I studied during 7 months. I studied English here in Cork. So I took my test, my English test. I had a good score there, and I started construction management here in Cork in September. Yeah, well, we as international students, we are taught to expect some things here from Ireland when we are in Brazil. So before moving here, we know something about Ireland, mainly about the crazy wind rain. That's one of the most famous thing about Ireland abroad. Not the most famous, but it's well known. It's about the rain that all the time rains here, and it's true. But I think the biggest problem is the wind, and you start to freezing. And the other problem is the cold, because before I come here, I lived in Brazil, in the south part of the road, near the equator, and we had a lot of sun there, and it was totally it is totally different here. Today I woke up with -2 here, so it's different. I expect that, but you know, it's different. The difference, it's pretty, you know. And the different food, I love eat this kind of thing, and but it's totally different. I expect that. I saw some famous picture about the Irish breakfast, the eggs, the beans. For example, beans we just eat during lunch and dinner, and it is very different. And the language, obviously, my English wasn't very good. Maybe it's not so good as well at now, but before I was even worse, and I was afraid about that because it's not well-known language. Maybe you're not prepared to communicate correctly, and it was one of my fears. And yeah, and two different things about Ireland that when we search some figures, some websites, it's about a dance that's very famous, and we saw that the Irish people, they are proud of the dance. That's fast, and it tires you, this kind of thing. And it's very famous abroad because it's unique, you know. And the Guinness, that's the famous beer. Everyone told me that, oh, when you get back, you'll be like a drunk guy because of the Guinness there, and everyone loves Guinness. So, okay, maybe we'll see. And yes, one of the first things that I found out about Ireland there in Brazil was that sometimes it's called Emerald Island because of the green colors. Everything is green here, all the camps, all the places. So it was those are the things that I knew about Ireland. But I think they're all cliches because it's we know about that, but it's not just that, you know. It's not just those things. It's much more than that. And the study here sometimes totally different. It's unique studying in Ireland because, for example, the real food. I think I ate the Irish breakfast once just to taste it, but potatoes, they are my main meal here. When I go shopping at the market, I buy a lot of potatoes because it's it's cheap, it's very good. I like this, so it's pretty the real food. The accent, I didn't know about the accent. I knew that we would have a different accent, but I didn't know how different was that. And sometimes it's difficult. Mainly during the beginning was more difficult to understand. For example, those drivers. Sometimes I couldn't understand what he or she was saying. And but now I think I'm getting some of the expressions and accents. The timetable is very different when we compare the timetable in Brazil and Ireland. For example, I had 2-hour classes, and here I have just 1-hour class, and it's different because generally you have a longer time in the same class, and maybe we take more time to like get in the teacher's words, this kind of thing. And the disposition of the classes, the modules, they are very different. For example, we had a really straight timetable. Generally, 1 year before we know our classes of the new year. Not exactly, but we have a good base about that. We have a good initiation about that. And one of the things of the timetable that changed is the proportion of productivity and the amount of sum. Because in Brazil, for example, my class started at 8, and I have some friends that had class at 7, and here it starts at 9. But sometimes at 9, for example, today, we can't see the sun. It's impossible to see the sun. And I think as Brazilian, generally are like sunny people, solar people, and we need the sun to start our jobs, our activities. And here sometimes it's when I need to wake at 8, like today, and oh my God, where's the sun? It's night. It's night. It's still now, and I think I take more time to understand what's happening, to deal with the situation. And but I think with time we adapt ourselves. We have to be more adaptive because the amount of sun, the weather, heat changes a lot. In Brazil, we don't have very sharp, very the seasons are not very delimited, and we need to we can deal with it in a smooth way. Here it changed. For example, during the summer we have sun at 4, and now we have the sun rising at 9. So it's different. You have to keep adapting yourself during the year. And the timetable also it's related to the final exams. At least in Brazil, I don't know. I don't have final exams. I have like periods of I have some exams. They are divided in 3 or 2 batteries of them. 3 or 2 times, depends on the teacher or the college. And I had 3, and maybe the final exams, they're upsetting me a little because it's new. We have to study just at the end. So like we are a little under pressure because we need to get a good score just there. We have some evaluations during the semester here also, but the core of the exams is in the end. And yeah, other different things that we don't have in Brazil are the societies. We don't have this concept of society in Brazil. We have like maybe some groups that share the same interests, but it's not like the formally known as societies. And it's funny because I really like this idea. I think if I could get this and start this idea in Brazil would be great, because it's really good because people that share the same interests, the same feelings, and you can discuss about that. I participate in the climbing society. I started photography. I help on the in the international society. I have friends on DJ, drama, sports, religious. There are plenty of opportunities here, and I think it's amazing. You can meet people from a lot of places. You can meet people from. I think one of the most interesting things here are the societies, because they give you the opportunity to meet people from your field. Like as professional, you meet people from your course, from your hobbies. This kind of thing. I think it's really interesting. In Brazil, I think it would be a success there. And yes, the number, I think, at least for me, I think that's totally different, is the number of students per class. Here I have like 12 colleagues. In Brazil, I had class with 60 guys with me. And it's totally different because it creates a different atmosphere in the class. We are closer during most of times. Even if you're not friends, you need to be closer to work together doing group works. You need to discuss something, and the way that the lecture runs is also different, because generally as we are less during in the class, the teacher is able to have a conversation more than a lecture. Generally, we speak about the subject when it's not like math or I don't know, physics. I have a lot of subjective modules, and we discuss a lot about the situation. We have the opportunity to give our impression, to receive different impressions, and I think is the most contribution that I can give here, because I have a total different impression of road about. So what they are saying here is different what I thought or what I saw in Brazil, and I can give this difference I can explain, and they also give me their own experience, and I think it's really good, this situation. And it affects also the teachers, the professors, the lecturers. They are, as I said, really much closer than my teachers in Brazil. They know about you. They know where you're from. They try to understand your situation, your problem. They ask you about your life, about how are you getting the course, if I'm okay, if is everything as expected. We are able to discuss more effectively about we are able to get more information from the teacher, because he's closer or she's closer. We are in a discussion circle sometimes, and he's able to give us his own impressions about his life. You know, I think it's important, because in Brazil we have a lot of other difference. Generally, we have a lot of teachers that they finished the graduation and they started the post-graduation, and they started to give lectures. And here I noticed that all my teachers, they have a work background. They work in the market, so they have this amazing experience. Although I have some difference during the class. For example, I have one teacher that he dictates the class, and I get really lost sometimes because I can't follow the dictation, and I just gave up sometimes. Okay, I need to get it after with some colleagues, because I couldn't understand some new words. They are difficult to like guess with what he's saying. So I need to maybe deal with this in a different way. A different thing that's totally apart are the clothes here. They're really different. Generally the shapes, they are really different from Brazil. I don't know exactly what. I have problems with with pants, for example. I can't find good pants for me here. I think it's the shape. We have a different shape in Brazil. The body has a different shape. I hadn't thought about that in Brazil, because okay, it's clothes. Everyone uses clothes, but I didn't knew about that. I didn't know about that. And yeah, I think the girls, I think they have more impressions about that, more shoes. I don't have big shoes, just with the pants. I think, I don't know why. I just find a place to buy my things here. But I saw a lot of friends of mine from Brazil, from different countries, saying that, oh, it's really difficult to find clothes here. Maybe it's we have different colors, not different colors, but different. I don't know really. I just know it. I can find pants. I have some friends that talk about that also. But I think the most important thing here, at least I think in Ireland is very good, but everyone who is studying abroad, is the self-knowledge that you're able to get during this period. We are alone here. At least the first month, you don't know anyone. You're alone here. Sometimes you have to start to cook for yourself. You have to clean your home. You have to make your food. You have to buy your things, pay your bills. And we don't know about this all. We don't know how is living alone, And we discover ourselves. I was a lot of time alone, so I decided to get myself doing different things. I started to cycle. I started to take pictures. This is one of my pictures, and I really like that. And it's bigger, and sometimes it's a random guy. I don't know the guy, and I was in the park and I took the picture, and I really like this because it reflects a little what I'm saying about the self-knowledge. That's important to stay with you and try to discover yourself. I started to play puzzle here. I didn't know that how much I like this puzzle, and it's really a hobby that I discovered here. I started to write, and I really like to write, and it's funny because it was one of the things that probably that bring me here, because as I can show you. Oh, yeah. I'm participating in a program called Ireland Student Ambassador, and it's really good because it's a blog that we explain about the situation, how we live here in Ireland, and it's very good because I met a lot of people there. We just need to write to enter there. There's a selection. I wrote a text. They selected me as a CIT ambassador, and I need to explain my life writing. And I really enjoyed the idea. I really appreciate the idea because when I'm writing, it's a time that I can reflect about my life here. It's a time where I can bring my experience to everyone that want to see the text, to read the text, and it's opportunity to help people to decide if they want to come here. I hope people come here more because of my text. It would be amazing if I find out also, oh, I read your text and I really liked your impressions, and I decided to come to Ireland. And I really like this thing of be part of a thing that it's helping other people. Here, I hope with this webinar we can help people to understand more about Ireland. And yeah, I think is that. I think is it. Thanks.
Thank you very, very much. I just put a comment there that was very interesting about the clothes, and it's funny, I suppose, when you imagine what information we're trying to give students before they come here to Ireland, what sort of information that we can actually give them and what we can prepare. And I suppose something about clothes, I'm probably the worst person, so I will never be getting involved at that level because I myself in clothes. But no, I thought that was a very, very interesting, and you've raised some particularly interesting points, some issues that I'm going to raise then when we actually have the roundtable the discussion after the next two speakers. And no, thank you, very, very good, very, very insightful, very honest, and I think certainly it gave me some food for thought. And as I said, anybody who's watching in here, if there's any issues or anything like that, just sort of please put down any points that you want to raise. I'll be moderating the discussion board, and I'll put them to any of our speakers. So we started off here in Tralee, and we moved eastwards to Cork. We're now going to move even further eastwards to Waterford Institute of Technology, where we have a joint presentation here from Helen Murphy, who's the head of department in the Lifelong Learning Education, Adult and Continuing Education Department in WIT. Ken, who also works in the Lifelong Education Department, and he's also the coordinator for Springboard. And they have some interesting insights from their perspective to present. So as I said, I just feel like I'm on the Eurovision when I'm actually asking, is somebody actually there? So Helen and Ken, are you there? Are you live?
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm now going to switch off my microphone and hand over to Waterford.
Great. Good morning, Helen here in WIT, and we're going to talk this morning about our international students here, their experiences in WIT. We've done a small research study that we're going to share with you, and we've also got some clips of student perspectives, so maybe following on from what Faber was talking about, and there are certainly some common themes that I recognise that we're going to talk about. So I'm just going to hand over to, well, actually, sorry, before I do that, I want to ask Ken to introduce himself. And as I said, we've one or two clips, and we'll be moving over and back, so hopefully it'll be clear to people.
Good morning, Ken McCarthy is my name. I work in the Springboard office here in WIT, and I've also helped with the induction on mostly the Brazilian students and some German students we had over the summer.
Great. Before we start into the slides, we're going to show our first video clip. So I think Tony's going to help us out with that. Thank you.
Okay, so we're back again. So just to give an overview of the international department here in WIT, there's almost 1,000 students from 71 different countries. You saw some of our one of our Brazilian students there and one of our Indian students. They do a wide variety of programs. Most of the Brazilians tend to do science and engineering programs. Our Indian and Pakistani students tend to do IT and business masters. We've students from Saudi who do science, engineering, and business, and we have a number of strategic partnerships internationally as well that I'll talk about in a second or two. The kind of programs that they do, we mentioned some of them there already, but in common with Faber there, who spoke from CIT in Cork, most of our international students that come here, depending on their IELTS level when they arrive, they do one or both of two certificates in academic English and certificate in English for academic study to bring their IELTS standard up to the required entry level for the programs that they're then completing. So we had quite a number that arrived back in January from Brazil, who were doing a longer program up until September. Then we had more that arrived in June who done a shorter program to bring them up to September. And as I mentioned, the partnerships that we have internationally, we've an office in China that has a partnership with Nanjing University and UAST, and they've provided quite a lot of students. We've had 700 since we started in 2001.
Okay, so thanks very much, Ken. And we're going to present a small piece of research here, and it's based on it was a small survey that we did with a purposeful sample. So we surveyed about 100 students from Brazil and from China, and we asked them 3 questions. So why did they choose Ireland as a study destination? Secondly, how did they find out information about studying in Ireland? And the third thing, what additional information about studying in Ireland would have been useful to you? So we're looking at the whole experience of transitioning into Ireland. How did they find out about Ireland? And we also asked them what kind of advice they might give other international students coming to Ireland to study. Okay, so some of these responses aren't surprising, and we did divide them into 2 when we're presenting the findings, because they tended to have some different responses, and I thought it might be more appropriate to divide them up into 2. So our students from Brazil, so Science Without Borders students, their primary reason for coming to Ireland to study was that it was an English-speaking country. The social and cultural life in Ireland appealed to them. They felt that there was less bureaucracy than other countries, so maybe in relation to immigration and visa requirements. And also geographically, where we're based on the edge of Europe, it's an accessible spot for students to travel. And I know from talking to our Brazilian students in particular, they do quite a bit of travel across Europe when they're here for a year. Responses from our Chinese students, slightly different, interesting. The response that came out on top here was why Ireland was that it was a safe environment with a stable political system. So that whole idea of safety, peacefulness, they talked a lot about the quality of life in Ireland that they used as a reason to come here. Money, finances was an issue. Fees are less than in the UK. And then for particular Chinese students, we do have a couple of collaborative partnerships with universities in China. They came here because of that partnership. So how did they find out information about study in Ireland? Well, for our Brazilian students, the web, and also you'll see for the Chinese students, the web was the biggest source of information. We found that students in Brazil, and this is probably because of the Science Without Borders initiative that now has been, it's our 3rd year being involved with it, that social media played a big part, and social media and connecting into friends and other students. So there was quite a lot of peer-to-peer conversations happening about where are you going to study as part of the Science Without Borders project, how have your experiences, and I think students studying across all the HEIs in Ireland have had very positive experiences, and as a result of that, that has attracted more students. In China, the whole area of education fairs was quite to the forefront of how they found out information. The web, absolutely. Their own college and institution, particularly if that institution have a collaborative arrangement with another HEI in Ireland. And then, as I said already, the fairs, education fairs, which Education Ireland and many of us have been involved in. So 3rd question. This was really the reason we were asking this, what additional information would have been useful to you? We're trying to determine, and as part of this research project and our funded project with the forum, trying to determine how can we make the transition from where our international students are coming from into Ireland an easier experience, a better educational experience, a better social and cultural experience. So first thing that came up for a lot of the students, and actually both student groups mentioned this, it was in the top 3, is visa requirements. Just more information, and more information on the practicalities of exactly what's required in terms of our immigration, and possibly video clips and so on, so that students are really, really clear what they need to do before they come here and when they arrive. Both cohorts of students felt that they could have done with more information on the actual program they were coming to Ireland to study from. So I think that says something about the type of information that might be available through our website and maybe through websites in other HEIs. They're looking for a lot of information on the program, how it's taught, the timetable, the modules, assessment, and so on. Accommodation information and more accommodation information was something that was highlighted by students. They wanted, I suppose they're travelling a fairly significant distance to Ireland to study, and they really wanted to see exactly where they're going to be staying, how they were going to get there, how close that was to maybe the nearest city, and so on. And also I have their visa requirements the Chinese students mentioned as well. So there's a lot of common themes there, and maybe areas that might be fairly straightforward for us to address as part of this project. The advice that we asked students, what advice would you give to international students coming to Ireland? And interestingly, and I think this is reflective of Faber's comments earlier on, be prepared for the weather and the rain, and China brings suitable clothing. I think they were all quite surprised at how different the weather was, that it was quite wet, that it was windy. I know I read a comment not to bring any umbrellas to Ireland. There was no point. They needed hats. And actually, there were a number of comments as well in some of the questionnaires about where to buy suitable clothing. So kind of reflecting what Faber was saying about that. So I think that they're very practical pieces of information that students are looking for. Some students in Brazil particularly were giving advice about what goods to bring with. There are some goods they found very expensive in Ireland, some of the electronic goods, so they thought for other students they need to bring them with them. And food was a common theme as well. They find that both the Brazilian and the Chinese students found it difficult sometimes to buy food products that they could make their own traditional dishes. So things like spices and so on. So their advice was for students. They also, the Chinese students, interestingly, advised other students to learn how to cook before they come here, because the Chinese food in Ireland is not the same as the Chinese food in China. So some practical advice there. And also practice their English. Practice your English before you come. The language differential is, it's significant for all of our international students. So any opportunity that they get, and perhaps something that might be available through open source software over the web to practice their English. It makes the transition much, much easier for them. And then, again, as Faber mentioned, your studies would be different. I think they were talking about the methodologies that we use, that possibly we use more small group work through tutorials, and also through possibly smaller classes in Ireland, given our student numbers compared to maybe China or Brazil, and that may involve maybe learning in a different way, which was quite interesting. So some of the emerging questions that our study has posed for us, I think, is, how can we go about, some of the information requirements were fairly basic, and then some might involve further development work to look at how we can meet the needs of the areas that they've set out as requiring further information. What format should the information be presented in? The web is obviously where all of our international cohorts are accessing information about us, about Ireland, about study in Ireland. So is that video, pictures, visuals, people talking, testimonials, and so on. And just that, I think, certainly from my perspective, from an education perspective, studies in Ireland will be completely different. And Faber's comments, and also the comments that we've got back through our survey, is teaching methodologies may be quite different, and how maybe that enhances, or how does that contribute to their teaching and learning experience here in Ireland. So we're going to end our presentation. We've got a short clip from one of our colleagues here in WIT, and so I might ask Tony to roll that video. Thank you.
Hello. So thanks very much, Helen and Ken. A very informative presentation. I'll just call you back if you just wanted to say anything before we move on.
I just want to say thanks very much, and looking forward to any questions and maybe sharing experiences with our colleagues.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Some very, very informative stuff. Certainly has given me some food for thought, and it's good to see that some of the stuff is tying together from our first presentation and now from yourself and Ken's presentation. So yeah, very, very interesting. Thank you. So we're now actually switching all the way from our furthest southeast partner back here to IntTranWebinar, and we have Lorraine Lynn Cashin. She's from Malaysia. She's come to study here in Ireland. She's here since just last September. She's studying pharmaceutical analysis here in IntTranWebinar, where she's going to stay with us for 4 years. So we'll just hand over now to you, Lorraine.
Hello, I'm Lorraine. Is it alright? Can you hear me? Video. Okay. Hello, I'm Lorraine. Alright, the first thing I would like to share about is the happiest thing I've experienced since I came to Ireland. Well, it's actually joining the Christian Union Society, because it really makes me, gives me a sense of belonging and a sense of familiarity. I think these two things are very important for international students who come from other countries and move into this new home. It gives, will make me feel more at home, because I think it's very important to form bonds with people here to really quickly adapt to the new home here. Like back in Malaysia, I miss Malaysia a lot because I form very deep bonds with the people I love, people around me. Like, for example, my parents, my dearest dad and mom, my sisters and cousins, my friends, and my soft kitty. So it's very great to have them there, but I was like suddenly plucked off from them, and all the bonds were cut off, and I'm here alone, just no one close here. So sometimes it's quite overwhelming, and just like the people have supported you all the time. It's like 16 hours away from me now, and but I consider lucky. The Christian Union at IntTranWebinar just set up 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks, and I get to meet this group of people. This the brothers are not here, it's a sisters night. So it's great to have them here. I really feel the support I need. I get it. And they're very friendly, and we care about each other. We not only share our happiness, but also our worries. Because some of them are second-year students, and they get a lot of practicals or assignments to finish. So sometimes they feel, I can see that they are very stressed, but still they sacrifice their time and plan out this kind of gathering. It's very great, and it's wonderful to mix around. There are Brazilians, there are Irish, and Malaysians, and Hungarians. We really care about each other and pray together. So I think forming bonds with people here can really help me to feel more at home and less homesick. Well, the next thing I would like to share about is the thing that I've learned since I came here is actually financial management. Well, I know a lot of students come here that usually have a good background or financially capable, or they're supported by the government, which is very great. But sadly, that's not my case. So I get to learn to have a clear mind and to think twice before I spend every single cent of my money. And of course, not to follow other people's decisions. It's easy to follow other people's decisions, just follow them. But that's not, I know my situation doesn't allow me to. So I have to think too roughly. For example, my friend would one day she just said, "Oh, come on, it's Sunday, Lorraine, let's go and grab a lunch." And I know this place, it just costs like 10 euro. It's very cheap. But it's kind of expensive to me, so I said, "No, thanks." And I explained to her, yeah. But she just said, "Oh, no, you should come. It's considered very cheap, really. You must trust me. And there's a free dessert." But I have to say no again. Because I know, yeah, I can't afford that. 10 euro is like I can eat for a whole week. Or for example, during holidays or weekends, I can just book a flight and go to travel other European countries, or take a train to Dublin. But I have to say where I am. But living in this kind of situation, feeling this kind of burden, I don't think that is a bad thing, because I think it's a learning process. I learned to think in a more matured way, and I learned to manage my money well, to estimate my monthly living expenses, and I learned ways to save money, different ways, like, for example, hand washing my clothes, buying vegetables at reduced sections, and learned to cook my own meals. In Malaysia, I seldom cook. I can say I didn't cook at all, but here I started to learn to cook, and this is what I can produce. For me, it's quite delicious and healthy, I mean, in my opinion. But yeah, this is I learned to cook, and it saved a lot of money. And of course, I can travel as well in a cheap with a cheap price, like following the like one-day trips arranged by our institute. Like €5 I can go to Ring of Kerry, €15 I can go to Dingle. So these are my housemates, 2 Germans and 1 Malaysian as well. So it's wonderful that our institutes organize this kind of cheap tickets to go and enjoy this kind of trips. It gives me the opportunity to travel, and so I feel very thankful to my parents. They're supposed to be retiring now, but still they're continuing to work to support me. That they know that I will grow much faster in this kind of situation. Like, I love challenges, and I really learn how to take care of myself. And the other thing I feel grateful about is at Chile. You see, the accommodation is included in our tuition fees, and it's great. You see, this is where we stay. This is my housemate's room, and we have our own bedroom and our own toilet. We don't need to share with other people. We just share a kitchen. 4 persons share a kitchen. It's great. It's very comfortable. Just that sometimes the Wi-Fi is not that stable, and I have to stay in the library to finish up my assignments. I think that way will help me to save some electricity as well, because we have to pay our electricity bills, which is quite expensive. But anyway, it's a great place to stay because there are a lot of international students staying together, and Irish as well, locals. And so we can mix around, and we always meet each other in the accommodation, and there are a lot of house parties to attend, which is a great interaction opportunity. So I really thank Heidi Trelli for that. It makes it possible for me to study abroad. Yeah, I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorraine. Some lovely photographs there, and some very, very insightful and helpful suggestions there, and points to just ponder there. I'm just going to call back in Ken and Helen as well. Just a few points that I just wanted to sort of raise here with people here. They're back on. Some of the issues there, you sort of said that it was a safe environment. How did sort of people perceive Ireland in that respect? Did you get any more sort of details on that?
Yeah, I think and it was a comment that a lot of students made, particularly students coming from China, that they felt secure in terms of it was going to be a safe country. There was just a stable, police force. They felt that the country politically is being governed in a way that would not, I think of maybe, I don't know, some of you may have heard some of the happenings in the US over the last week or two. We don't have that happening in Ireland. Guns are not allowed in Ireland. Those kind of factors, I think, for a young Chinese student coming to Ireland appear to be quite important. So how safe is it going to be? How well is it governed? Are there going to be riots on the street? Do people have guns? And that was kind of followed on by their perception of us having a very nice quality of life in Ireland. I think the whole area of family values is something that came up, that people were friendly and talked to each other, and I think a lot of our students have said that, and a lot of the presenters this morning have said that. So the kind of security and safety aspect, then led into, it seems like that we have a nice quality of life. And that's all despite our terrible wind and rain.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, just I was going to ask you, do you get a sense of that? Do any of them talk about the weather?
I myself and Ken both went through all of the questionnaires, okay, that we got back, which is a significant response rate. And I have to say, I was really surprised that the weather featured prominently on almost every single one of them. And I mean, I know that we don't have as nice weather as maybe parts of Brazil, or just it's not as humid maybe as in China, but at the same time, I was still quite surprised that the weather was a very significant factor for students. They didn't have the right clothing. When they went to buy the clothing, Ireland didn't have maybe suitable sizes. It was very expensive. And, you know, I suppose that you don't want students coming here feeling cold and miserable and not wanting to go out, but it was something that nearly all of the students commented on, which I was a bit surprised at.
And what was even more surprising was this is apparently the sunny southeast, so I can only imagine what it must be like in Tralee or further west.
Someone who moved down from the east coast to the west coast, yes, even I noticed the difference in the rain. Lorraine, any your thoughts about the weather? Just when we're on about the weather.
Oh, yeah, it rains a lot. In Malaysia, we usually have heavy rains, but it just rains for 1 day per week. But here it's like raining every day, but it's light rain. It's a bit inconvenient, right? We have to always bring a raincoat with us. Yeah.
There was another issue there I just want to put to Ken and Helen there, just from your perspective. There's obviously a requirement on English, and I know there's the IELTS scoring system, but even the people who have actually scored the minimum, do you still find any issues with people's actual ability with English?
Oh yes, I think you know, we have, as with I'd say a lot of our colleagues, minimum requirements for people to access undergraduate and postgraduate programs. But even students who do that, and what we do is they're not necessarily following, let's say, one of our certificate programs in academic English, but we have, for example, this year we decided we'd have Fridays dedicated to all of our Brazilian students who drop in, and we've got 3 or 4 English language. It's both practice in terms of speaking with colleagues, getting used to accents, and also reading, writing, and so on. So outside of maybe some of the structured programs that we have, we are providing kind of ongoing interaction with English, and that's why maybe the social element of what they do in Ireland is very, very important. The sports clubs and the other clubs and societies that they'll join, we'd strongly be encouraging students to, you know, engage with that, because it's an opportunity to interact with peers from other countries, from Ireland, and which is really, really helpful. So yes, students continue to, but some students continue to find it a little difficult, but students who really, really engage with the whole study experience, I suppose, so the educational aspect, but also the social and cultural aspect, find it a lot easier. And then they're quite immersed then in the language. We find after the first semester, when they've gone into semester 2, there's really huge improvements, but there is ongoing kind of more informal support available to them.
And what about you, Lorraine? I mean, how do you find the different accents, or have you found that an issue?
Well, at first, the first few days, I have problems about the accent of the lectures, but after a while, I started to get used to it. It's fine, I think. Yeah.
Yes, I suppose. I mean, you know, you can prepare, but then I suppose I would imagine that people, before they come here, maybe learning a more standard sort of English, and then they come to Ireland with different ways of sort of settling in. Yvonne there just talking about the Helen Society is a great way for students. Yes, I mean, when I met Faber and I was talking to him, I was surprised that wasn't a feature of the Brazilian universities, was the societies. And I think Lorraine also mentioned about, you know, the Christian Union Society here. So I think that's a particularly useful way of helping people to integrate there. And also, I suppose the thing with clothes is actually is an issue. I'm a little bit surprised that. I just want to ask Lorraine, have you come across that issue about clothes when you came here? Sorry, Lorraine, I was just saying about, have you found the issue of clothes, different sizes or different, like what Faber was mentioning about clothes being an issue when you came to Ireland?
Okay, sorry. The clothes, I think it's alright. I can get cheap clothes in a penny, and because the size, it's quite big here, it's different from Asia country, so I can get some clothes in children's size, which is cheaper.
Very useful. That was something which wouldn't have occurred to me. And Aileen just talked about the organised trips are excellent. Yeah, and I think that's just following on from Lorraine's point there. I think you certainly need to bear in mind that they're as affordable as possible. I know that different students are on different sort of type of packages, and some would obviously would have different backgrounds as well. But certainly it's an issue about making things affordable like that. Just talking about the cooking and food there as well, and I'm just going to ask Helen and Ken, and I'll just also ask anybody else who's out from different colleges. Is there anything formal about organised about, like, say, teaching people actually how to cook, or budgeting, or the actual practical things when they get here?
I'm not sure. I don't think our induction program would cover that kind of thing in any level of detail. And it was a theme that came up across the two cohorts of students that we surveyed, that they were all advising each other to learn how to cook before they got here, because they really wanted home cooking at some point during their experience in Ireland, and unless they were able to do it for themselves, they weren't going to be able to do it. But so that's possibly something that we could think about. And the other thing was, I think it's a little bit better now, the availability of products that they can cook, spices, herbs, and so on. They found some of them very difficult to get in Ireland. I think that's improved in recent years. But some very practical kind of housekeeping kind of. I thought the comments about paying, how to pay bills, the fact that some of our students, our international students, are living independently for the first time and in a different country that works differently. So I think there's maybe some lots of practical advice, and possibly something we could put together that would make that transition easier. I do know that in WIT they do make an effort, and I'm sure they do in all the other colleges, where they have Brazilian days, and we have all the various international festivals where we do attempt to cook foodstuffs that are international foodstuffs. But I think they really want to know how to do it themselves and be able to buy the ingredients to be able to do it themselves. So.
Just and on that, I know in the induction pack that they get, it has directions and locations of some of the supermarkets that they mightn't be familiar with, so they get practical advice as to where things are and how to buy, where to buy things.
You just touched on some of it there, and there's a question here from Irina. She was wondering if you could tell us a bit about the students. You've talked a little bit about the practical stuff, but she's also talking about how you get into about the transition into the academic culture of Ireland. Like she says, and how it was for them to get used to assignments and the independent learning. How much sort of preparation do you do for the actual academic thing?
Sure. It might depend. Some of our students, the students who come here to do some of our English language programs before progressing to undergraduate or postgraduate students, they're immersed in maybe our teaching methodologies and what they're going to experience on their degree programs immediately. And that makes for an easier transition, usually. Students that are coming here who already meet the English language requirements are going straight into a degree program. We would have it depends on the degree program, okay? It depends on what discipline, what faculty they're studying in, but they would usually be buddied up with other peers, Irish peers possibly, in their class, and they would be asked, I suppose we would facilitate smaller student groups working together so that they can get, used to the concept of
English language question.
group assessment, and so on. In terms of how we prepare, I think the lectures, over the last 10 years, we've had increasing numbers of international students, so we're aware of the fact that there may be different learning styles. They may be used to different modes of lectures. You know, so some of the Chinese students there talked about, you know, very big group lectures. We have the facility to support some of our degree programs in smaller groups here, depending, as I said, on the subject area. So that's kind of an ongoing process.
Okay. So there's a question here from William here. What's the minimum level of IELTS to transfer into a program in WIT?
It depends on whether it's an engineering subject or a business and humanities. For an undergrad, it's between 5.5 and 6, and between 6 and 6.5 for some of our humanities and business areas.
Is there any different level if it's undergrad or postgrad?
It depends on what people are studying. For the highly technical subjects, it's slightly less. But if somebody's coming to us, for example, in my department, we have master's programs in education, in teaching and learning, and they would require an IELTS of 6.5. So yeah, there'd be a lot more written English required, and maybe a level of writing academic English, which would be different than what might be required in a more technical degree program.
Well, very good. Just Neve here in LIT was saying about the students host dinner nights where they would cook for each other and normally their own traditional foods. And I think, you know, Miguel talks about belonging, and I suppose I mean, food is one of those things for belonging. As someone who lived in England many years ago, I still remember the joy of actually coming across a shop that sold potato crisps. So we, you know, I think as I said, in terms of helping people to settle in, they're there, and so just coming in from Nave there with the learning support unit, there to help with any areas that where people find difficult within their studies, and to provide induction and academic writing skills. So I do have a Nepalese student who's a great chef. I actually do love Nepalese food, which is I must go up to LIT. So as I said, no, it's important, those things. Just about the food and sense of belonging like that. Lorraine, I'm just going to bring you back in here now. How important for you is the whole thing about food and sort of, you know, you talk here about belonging?
About food. We usually like in our accommodation, we will like have sometimes dinner, like house party, and then different people bring, like Brazilians, they bring their own food, Chinese bring their own food, Germans bring it, and we share the food together and have this gathering. It's great. We often have them. And yesterday, the International Day in IntTranWebinar, we also have this chance. It's like a food day. Like every countries, they have their own food there, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait, and we tried a lot of different food. So I think it's great to taste different food from different country. Yeah.
Just another point, I'll keep it you around for a second, and I'll talk to Helen and Ken. Just about the importance of social media, and Faber was talking about, you know, the cliches of Ireland. How much did you know about Ireland before you came, and where did you get most of your information? Lorraine? Yeah. So where did you get most of your how much did you know about Ireland, and and where did you get most of your information?
Oh, I get it from I get information from education counselor in Malaysia. They have connection with a lot of these institutes in Ireland, and I get it also from website and the international office at IntTranWebinar. Yeah.
And did you know anybody else, or did you get an opportunity to talk to people who'd been in Ireland before in Malaysia, or social media sites at all?
No, I just talked directly to the education counselor there. Yeah, they helped me everything with the registration, everything they just set up for me. Yeah.
And Ken and Helen, I mean, like, for you as a college, I mean, like, social media become very, very important for and the internet for yourselves for attracting people here.
Helen, can you turn on your talk button, please?
Yeah, sorry about that. So social media, yeah, increasingly hugely important from a recruitment point of view. And also, I think Salva's comments about even using social media when students get here, and all the different pages, all the different Facebook pages that we have, and how she's now much more inclined to you know, message with Facebook as opposed to send emails, and that is the way it's moving. So how we're using social media as a recruitment tool, I think, is a really big, maybe strategic issue. And I'm not a social media expert. I don't know. I'm sure we have people in our international office who would be able to add to that conversation, but it's what our students are telling us that they're looking at. So I think, yeah, it's a big opportunity.
We have a question here from William. He's saying, thanks for answering the previous question regarding the IELTS. He's saying, ballpark, what's the expected or anticipated IELTS jump in 1 year in WIT?
Well, I think normally we would expect somebody to come up 0.5 in one semester. Okay, so if somebody was coming for 2 semesters in WIT, we'd expect them to move up 1 level on IELTS. If they come to us at 4.5, I'd expect them to move up between September and May to 5.5. If the 1 year question is interesting, because we have started. We're looking at a 3rd semester, which would be a summer term, if you like, which would mean that somebody could come up by 1.5 over a calendar year as opposed to an academic year. That's in development at the moment.
Thanks very much for that, Helen. So I suppose we've come to more or less the end, and unless there was anybody else has any other questions or observations that they wanted to bring up in the chat box, but if people are happy enough with that, we'll switch off in a moment, and we will be returning back at 11:20. So I just want to thank this morning for Faber, Ken, Lorraine and Helen for your contributions, and also the people that get involved in the chat room, and so we'll be returning back in half an hour. And thanks very much to everybody, and we'll see you back here in half an hour.
The video and audio.
Of that, in Ireland, education has a very different method of looking at things, completely different to other countries. Even within our subject choices. For example, in Oman, electronic engineering is very popular as a program choice, and there are equal number of places maintained and reserved for male and female applicants. While the traditional perception in Ireland is that electronic engineering is not a typical or common career for females, and we do not have substantial numbers of females in first year. This gender bias comes as a shock to some of our international students, and something again that I think we need to look at when transitioning students. When we look at our group dynamics, having international students as part of any group enriches the learning experience for all. It opens up new norms for our students and allows them to think globally. However, for the international students, it can be difficult to integrate into the class groups as they have to overcome the language and the cultural barriers. Another aspect, different aspect actually to be aware of here, is assuming that all the international students from a particular country are one group that will share work, help one another, and have the same outlook. Just as with any group of individuals, they can come from completely different regions of the country and may not have many commonalities. As Irish people, you put us in a room with other Irish people, and within a few hours, of course, we all know each other. We all have made a common link, and we've all found somebody we know in common. We're known for this all over the world. Other cultures do not have that. Therefore, we need to encourage it in others and be aware of that with people. Looking at the supports that we provide here in IT Carlow, when students join us in first year of their level 8, they have to get used to our education system. At an organizational level, we have tight timetables with little or no flexibility. We have year-long and semester modules. We mix examination styles and methodologies. Our examination schedules are mixed and varied. An international student has to navigate this without any assistance or any preparation. This task proves difficult, as we all know, for Irish students who generally have family or friends to make the transition easier. Now, the International Office is here to support the students. That's very true, but their focus is different. As was said this morning, it is generally to ensure that the students have the correct visa, that they are registered on the correct course, that they have the appropriate accommodation, and that they know where the shops are, where everything that they need is provided. And while the International Office offers fantastic support to the students, it is sometimes the academic hurdles that prove the hardest for the students to actually adjust to when they get here. The foundation year has its own focus. It prepares students for the transition into our education system and culture. It has lots of advantages. It gives students an opportunity to develop their language skills and the vocabulary required for their future discipline. As they said in Waterford, disciplines have different requirements. It opens up the students to seeing the operation of the institute on a daily basis. So now they know where the rooms are, they know the types of laboratories they're going to go to if they're doing science, or the type of lecture halls if they're doing business or humanities. The students see how we interact with them and how we foster an environment of engagement and develop that learning partnership. The students who have completed this course find the transition much easier. However, they still need that academic support when they transition into first year, because they need to know what the timetables are, where they're going, and what they're doing. If we then look at the case study for China, from our perspective here, we have a level 8 computer degree in systems management program, which is 3 years in China plus 1 year in Ireland course. I went to Zhengzhou in the Henan province to coordinate the program and to lecture the project management. This was a very successful program as the students studied our program in China. Year 1 and Year 2 was delivered in China in Chinese. Year 3 was delivered through English in China with Irish and Chinese lecturers. This allowed the students to become very familiar with Irish education methods without having that cultural adjustment. The students then completed Year 4 in IT Carlow and went on to masters or other programs in Ireland or abroad. The language lectures were provided in China during Year 3. They had to reach an IELTS score of 5.5. If they did not, they could not continue the program in Ireland. Summer language programs were also offered, and an extra year if that was what was required. The level of English was basic, but still all of their lectures in Year 3 were very thorough. English was supported, and they were exposed to the specialized language that they would need and the vocabulary for the program. In science and engineering, where the language is predominantly maths, students perform excellently. However, they find expressing themselves through English in detail we have sometimes found very difficult. As students come from different cultures, they sometimes find it difficult to understand our humour and some of the cultural references that we take for granted. For example, in China, rote learning is the predominant method of learning, and examinations which require the students to restate the information is the assessment method. There's no interaction with the lecturer. Project work required extra support for the students because they were unfamiliar with working on their own to develop the product. This was facilitated in China and supported by IT Carlow staff. We had joint program boards and exchanged lecturing staff. This ensured that the students had the Carlow experience in China. that what they received in China was very similar to what the students received here in Ireland. When the students arrive at ITC, they're greeted by our agent from China, Suzanne, and he stays for 2 weeks to ensure that the students know where to go, what to do, where the timetables are, support with accommodation, and anything else that they actually require when they get here. This has proved a very successful model and has helped the students get to know their way around. I think this one really helps them understand where we are and what we do. Our International Day was yesterday. We had students from 16 different countries participate, and it was a very enjoyable day and very successful, as it always is. The students actually demonstrate a lot of the different skills and a lot of the different dancing, etc., that are national to each student from each country. This is the cultural benefit that we have here for our Irish students is always very difficult to define, but it is an extraordinary opportunity for them to understand different people. We expose our students to the globe without having them to move 1 inch. They're getting the same courses as people are from other countries. Having a well-supported transition program enriches the experience for the international students. And our experience here at IT Carlow has shown that a very successful student is a very well-supported student. And I'd just like to thank everybody for their attention. And back to you, Tom.
Thanks very much. Excuse me. Thanks very much, Yvonne. That was very interesting, very informative. There's a question here from Neve. She's just asking, what is the level of IELTS that they need to enter into an undergraduate course in year 4?
In general, it's 5.5. Once we get to the higher levels, it's 6 minimum. 6. These are the basic requirements. Yeah.
Okay, so. Okay, and as I said, if anybody else has any other questions, don't forget to sort of type them in. I'll be monitoring the question. So we, as I said, we've been touring around Munster, and for our final speaker, we're going to go to UCC, and we're going to be joined by Suzanne Buckley, Support Officer for International Students in UCC. And so if you were there, Suzanne, we will just hand over to you. Okay, Suzanne, we're just waiting to see that.
Hello there, I can hear you, but I'm not sure if you can hear me.
I can hear you now. Yes, yeah. I think you're actually logged in as Anthony, but you are actually Suzanne. So that we can hear you. There's no video at the moment. Is that just click on the video button as well. I can now see you. So I'm going to knock off the speaker now, my microphone, and hand over to you, Suzanne.
Great, thank you. Hello there, everybody. My name is Suzanne Buckley. I'm the support officer here at University College Cork. I've been in the role since 2002, and we've seen a lot of different changes over the years. This morning, I'd like to share with you our experience of supporting our international student community. And I suppose we should identify who they are before I do that. So we currently have 2,240 degree students coming from over 100 different countries worldwide. We also have a further 1,100 visiting students, so in excess of the 3,000 from over 100 different nationalities. I'd like to concentrate on 3 aspects. So we're going to look at pre-departure students coming and how we support them before they get here, before moving on to look at the on-arrival supports and then the ongoing supports that we're here, and then perhaps take a quick look at what direction we think we're going in terms of future supports and digitizing those. So the first thing to look at is, if I can move my slide on. Yeah. Pre-departure. So we have started using Facebook like everybody else. In terms of social media, it's where the students are at. I suppose we see huge uptake in that, and we did have some reservations about it in terms of what could be said, what could be controlled, but the students are forming the groups themselves in any case, so we thought we were better off to participate. It's usually peer-to-peer support, and we do have some input from the office on occasion as well, but for the most part it's peer-to-peer. Out of that has come what students requested, which is an opportunity to meet people who are here already, those who are studying at UCC. And when they return home during the summer months, they take the time to host the students who will be incoming, and we organise hometown meetups. They've been really well received, and the feedback from students is extremely positive. I suppose they always have contact with their office, and that's what we rely on for official information. They will seek out their peers on both Facebook and in person to get the inside track, so to speak, on what it is to live in Cork, to study at UCC, course material, what is the living and studying in Ireland and in Cork and at UCC is like. Obviously the website is also very useful, and they would be our main pre-departure support once the student has accepted. Obviously we have agents on the ground and we have recruiters out there as well, but once the student has accepted, this is the way we would go about supporting them at pre-departure level. Okay, so on arrival we have three main programs. The Welcome Programme was introduced way back in 2004, and it was brought in because we found students were arriving early, primarily to look for accommodation and also to settle down, find a way around the city. But having found somewhere to live, usually school didn't start for a week or so, and they were isolated, alone, homesick, wondering if they'd made a good decision. We thought about connecting them up and how we could do that to ensure that they weren't on their own, and that they did have a network of support with students who were experiencing the same type of away from home experience. And we came up with the Welcome Programme, which has expanded over the years and is very, very successful. We know that from the student feedback, which is always extremely positive. We have also expanded the number of events we do. They're strictly social, so they're not designed to give any academic information. They're primarily designed to ensure that students get to engage with each other and that they make a connection at the outset. The idea behind it is that if they're settled and they have a network of support themselves, that they're more likely to do well academically and that they have less problems going forward. So it's very important to us that they have an opportunity to participate. We don't have a big budget for it, but we do try and do as many things as possible, things like cinema, welcome meetings, city walking tours, GAA skills. And interestingly, it's the welcome meeting that has most participation and is best received by students as well. This is where we give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. We introduce ourselves. They also would find out who's living in different building blocks, or if they're looking for apartments, that they would look together. They would look at people doing the same courses, or possibly others in the same country as well. I suppose that forms the backdrop, and then everybody does an orientation. The orientation is tailored to their specific needs. So if they're visiting students from Europe, possibly on the Erasmus program, or if they're from America doing a study abroad, they would do a specific orientation. And then our degree students would do something similar. They're more integrated with the full degree students. We've tried to give them short bites so that they're not overloaded with information. We usually do it over a 3-day period where they would do 2 hours of academic information, 2 hours of social information, and then an opportunity to meet with departments. We would also cover IT, library, network log-on, and obviously picking up your ID card, which gives you access to the university. I've highlighted Fáilte Fest here, which is the big UCC welcome. It's actually organised by our admissions office, and it's for all incoming first years. But it is where we would see our students integrate quite well with the local student community. And I've just a short video to show you. It's about a minute and a half, and it's usually on the Saturday before term starts. Ooh, it's not connecting.
Sorry, Suzanne. Tony here. If you'd like to move on to the next slide and come back to that, sure. I'll set that up for you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm just going to move on, and we'll come back and look at that and end on it maybe. So I suppose once we've looked after them at pre-departure stage and seen them as they've come through on arrival, there's the ongoing supports, and there's the usual ones that you'd expect to see at university: the health centre, counselling and development, careers office, disability support, and all of the other offices that act as a support for students while they're here. We would also do a number of different things from the office as well. We would do specific workshops on health, immigration, exams, IT, library, all of those. We've seen fall off in numbers, and we're not sure if that's because of semesterization or if it's because what we're doing at the outset at orientation and at welcome meetings is effective. We need to investigate that a little bit further. We also have UCC Red, which is being put together by our Teaching and Learning Initiative, and it's where students can log on and learn a little bit about what we expect in terms of critical writing, note-taking. There's several different modules there that they can look at and do from home. It's to provide them with some information about what's expected of them. And again, that's not just for the international student community, that's for all students here at UCC. We rely very heavily on our clubs and societies for integration, and it's where we tell students you will meet others who have common interests, and it's where students integrate. So I suppose we have over 100 different societies which tend to be interests, and over 70 different clubs which tend to revolve around sports. There's a slightly different cultural attitude there, particularly with the American students, where we have an emphasis on participating. And it would be quite new to them that you don't necessarily need to be good at anything, that you just need to be enthusiastic. So that's very, very welcome from all of our international student community. And some of them are quite shocked too that they have access to a sports facility on site on campus as well. Obviously we do different cultural events based around students' own culture, so Chinese New Year, Diwali, Holi for the Indian students, and things like Thanksgiving as well. A new initiative has been the Living Learning Communities, and that's based out of our campus accommodation, where we're looking at matching students who have an interest in a particular subject or have interest in particular social activity as well. It's relatively new but has been successful. For example, last week they ran a cookery competition, and well, actually it wasn't even a competition, they were teaching them cooking skills, and then they're running a competition later, and they'll be taking them to the English market and given a private tour. So we also initiated the first alcohol-free housing in Ireland, and we could probably fill that 10 times over if we opened it up to our international student community, but we actually have kept it primarily for those from the domestic background. And there's a different perspective on it. Sometimes it's seen as dry housing from the States, where you're making a lifestyle choice not to drink alcohol. And yet when you mention it here in Ireland, some people think that there must be a problem or something. So it's about lifestyle choice. So I suppose there's a couple of examples of living learning communities. I've highlighted peer support, and the reason I put that in red is because throughout all of our support, so whether it's pre-departure, ongoing, or the current supports here on campus, we rely very heavily on our peer support leaders. And these are students who have volunteered and are specially trained to engage with the incoming students and to look after them and act as a point of contact, but also as a point of referral.
Hi Suzanne, Tony here. We can run that video now if you like.
Okay, great. I'm just going to revert to the video mentioned earlier, which hello.
Okay, Suzanne, if you press your talk button and video button again, you can come back to us. Thanks.
Hi there. Thanks a lot, Tony. We were just looking at the big UCC welcome, and as I mentioned earlier, that's where we integrate the newly arriving Irish students and European students with the international student community. And there's a whole series of workshops on campus just immediately prior to the start of term, but also fun activities for them to participate in. And it's really well received by students. We've already talked about the current support, so I'd just like to touch on where we think we will be going with future supports. We're at least conceptually looking at digitising them. So the vision would be to have an online module, maybe based around something similar to the UCC Web, the Resources for Education, or perhaps looking at what East Anglia have on offer with a couple of their MOOC programs. So you have a dashboard of options, some compulsory. Students would look at doing immigration, accommodation, well-being, registration, other aspects of living in Ireland as well. You'd have some compulsory elements, and then they'd opt into others as well and complete them. And that would be something they could do before they get here, on arrival even, and revisit again at a later stage. I'd envisage we'd have a global chat room, there'd be a lot of visuals. Much of what we've done before for the web has been a transition from print to web, and this would be specifically designed for the web for student use. I see the advantages as being up to date, up-to-the-minute information, students are having an opportunity to build a network of friends. They can revisit the site as necessary, an option to engage in their own language. For us, we would mean we could monitor who's accessing information, what's our reaches, being able to analyse the data and look at the metrics in terms of key performance indicators for ourselves as well. Obviously, it would be quite interactive. In terms of resources, not only would it be a resource, but we also struggle at the start of the year to find space and obviously budget as well to run different events. I don't necessarily see them as replacing things like the welcome program or orientation, but actually complementing them, adding value. We will possibly have a different focus at the orientation of welcome programs where we would look at connecting students. And I suppose that brings me to the disadvantage. Will students continue to engage in person if they can access everything online? And I suppose I go back to what we learned when we did the survey for our welcome program, and the one thing that received the best feedback was the welcome meeting, where we actually went and met students, and it was a meet and greet session, and that was the best received and the most attended. So I think if we make it interesting enough, they still will engage. So that's it from me. I'm open to taking some questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Suzanne, and as with Yvonne, some very, very interesting and informative stuff there. And I can see that you place a lot of emphasis on the pre-support and the pre-departure support. Just a matter of interest, I mean, you've quite substantial numbers with over 2,200 international plus the 1,100 visiting. I suppose even with the best will in the world, and I'll pose the question to you, Suzanne, and then to Yvonne. Have you come across where students just simply can't settle at all, and do you get a few people who just pack up and go home?
Yeah, I suppose for me it comes down to students, managing a student's expectations and combining that with their life skills. So yes, on occasion you will have a student and you make a joint decision, and usually there's family involved as well. But if we can settle them in at the outset, and if we can manage their expectations, and one thing that we do is we will do the W curve for culture shock and explain that this is very normal, that when you arrive there'll be a honeymoon phase, everything, you can expect everything to be great fun, you're enjoying being here, and you're delighted to have arrived, etc. But then it all comes crashing down around you and your sense of frustration takes over. And we do that at the outset and explain to students this is normal. Everybody experiences this when they're away. That certainly steadies things for them. But and we put in all the other supports trying to get them connected with other students in the community here. But it doesn't always work, and sometimes students have never been away from home, or the culture shock is too great, or there's something happening at home that they want to get back to, and yes. But It's not very frequent. The other thing I would say to students is that they might settle well in first year and they might have a problem in second year. You know, it's very unique to the individual.
And Yvonne, yourself?
Hi, I'd agree with Suzanne. Definitely, as I said, it's managing expectations. The students, once they're prepared for coming to Ireland and know what to expect, then they're much more likely to maintain the program and stay with it. Again, there are different life choices that they make and they have to go with those, but we find it very rare because the international office, again, offers amazing support to students and is there literally 24/7 for international students if they require that kind of support.
Suzanne, the question here from Jill Murphy all the way up in Letterkenny. You're very welcome, Jill. She would say, would you like to know a little bit more about the peer support and how that works?
Yeah, so we have a dedicated officer who looks after peer support. It's been up and running for a number of years and it is a real staple now in terms of the support that students get. So what we would have is a recruitment drive inviting current students to actually become peer support leaders. They have to go through an application process, they are interviewed. Rebecca Murphy is our coordinator and she's quite a lot of experience in dealing with the international students, or just students in general. Actually, she was with the USIB at one point. So she would recruit them, train them up, and deal with things like boundaries, expectations, what we would like them to do, and how they could help other students. What we do then is during orientation, they're paired with a number of incoming first years, and it would be usually based around subject areas. So we would ask students doing science, peer support teachers to come in and look after the students for the day during orientation. They would do icebreakers with them, they would do campus tours, possibly library tours as well. And then they would be available by email throughout the year to actually engage with students who have just come in. And they would arrange to meet up with them as well for coffees and things like that, either as a group or on a one-to-one basis, but they're a point of contact for new students incoming. Sometimes it's extended out into residential communities, so we would have peer support leaders living in our campus accommodation and they would run different events there. We would have peer support leaders involved in different clubs and societies. So if a student is new and quite shy and they would like to partake in something but they haven't got the confidence to go, well then a peer support leader would meet them and say we'll go together. And it has been very successful in terms of keeping students involved, engaged, but also in flagging up difficulties for specific students. So if they won't know which office to go to, they may go to a peer support leader or they can act as a point of referral as well.
Thanks very much for that, Suzanne. Just on the thing about peer support, there's a question here for you, Yvonne. You're saying you've taught in China, so you obviously gained some insight. What about, say, with lecturers? I mean, would other lecturers come to you and ask you for advice if they've never taught maybe Chinese students before for advice, or does it happen on an ad hoc basis? How well are lecturers prepared for teaching international students?
Well, we prepare on an ad hoc basis at the moment, but before I went to China, we'd say I talked to the people who had been there before me and who have taught there, and that would have given me a great insight into the culture and into what to expect when I actually went to China. So very much we have this environment ourselves as professionals. Naturally, we talk to each other and prepare ourselves for what to expect when we get to a foreign country and how to deal with the students and how to know what the students' needs are to support them as best we can.
Suzanne, you were talking about the living learning community, and you said you make links. Could you explain how do you actually make those links between the different groups, or do you go by nationality or subjects, or how do you do that?
Sorry, Suzanne, it's Tony here. Can you please press your talk button?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Thanks very much.
Great. So just to answer your question, living learning communities, we usually do through at application stage. So students will express, they will give us some details about what they're involved in, what they like, and at that stage they're piloting it at the moment, and they'd run it on a small scale, but based on the successes involved in that, they'll look as if they'll roll it out at a greater level for the for more students to participate.
So, unless anybody has any other comments or questions, or is there anything that maybe Suzanne or Yvonne might just finally say, or any sort of final thoughts that you'd like, or maybe we've talked you out. But as I said, if no one else has any other comments or questions like that, I suppose I just want to thank Suzanne and Yvonne for this particular session, and for all the people who participated earlier in the day. For the job like mine, it's made very easy if people are engaging and provide lots of useful information. And I mean, one thing there, I think, that comes across there, and just paraphrasing from all five speakers there, but that thing about the successful student is certainly a supported student, and I think that's going to be an issue for colleges, and I suppose in terms of particularly for resources to give that level of support, but it certainly seems to be really important. I think certainly as a country and as an education system, I think we have an awful lot to offer, and I think one of the people on the UCC video was talking about a big family and safe environment, echoing the point there from Helen Murphy earlier in WIT. I think that's the thing which obviously Ireland can trade on, and I think deservedly so. It's a genuinely friendly place and a nice safe place. But that said, I mean, that will only carry you so far, and certainly the students do need to be supported. And I think, Suzanne, you're quite right. I mean, it needs to happen before people come here, and about managing those expectations. I think that's certainly a big challenge for people. I mean, culturally, and they're a long way from home. So I think that just hoping that things will work out certainly is not going to be it's not going to guarantee any sort of success. And I've been also surprised as well that how important that the societies and clubs have that important role, and I can certainly see it, and that certainly came through from our two student contributors earlier, that's an important issue. I think also managing those expectations, both in terms of life and sort of academic requirements, as Yvonne was saying there, they would have different conventions and different understandings, even what constitutes a pass mark. And I think both of you said it's about being realistic about what to expect and what not to expect, and I suppose I say just providing that support. So I suppose I just say to thanks to the five colleges. We were on a whistle-stop tour last week in preparation for today, and we're showing great hospitality and kindness every college we went to, and looking forward to rolling out. This will be part of a larger national forum project about supporting the transition for international students into the Irish higher education system. So I think that's about a safe home, and I just want to say thank you again, and finally just a thank you to Tony, if he just switches on his camera for a moment, because as I said, I'm just the presenter. Tony is effectively the producer. I'm Gayborn and he's Colette, and I suppose that might be a cultural reference, or for some people may or may not get that. So just to say, Tony's done a great job, and I can make life a lot easier for myself just sitting back and just doing the odd little bit of talking and coming onto camera. So once again, a real genuine heartfelt thank you to all the contributors who made my life very easy. I think we're going to draw out some very, very interesting lessons. Thanks again to the National Forum who are supporting this. We have another webinar being hosted on the 11th of February, and we will be putting out details of that. And as I said, I certainly encourage people to go on to the National Forum website. There are some excellent seminars coming up. I'm hoping to get to a few myself. So as I said, just have a look at that. And once again, goodbye and thanks again.